What I want to do is talk about comparison of an older set of plans to a newer set of plans, identify the changes rapidly, and then start producing. Now, at this point, I'm in Bluebeam, a great PDF tool that we use a lot. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the changes. Now, as I said in my recent article about civil site takeoffs, I don't trust clouds to tell me what's happened. Um, they're correct in locating stuff a lot of times, and other times, even if the clouds are there, they might show an architectural change instead of a civil change, and I really don't care about that because it doesn't affect my dirt numbers. So what I want to do is use one of the tools now. Bluebeam has a couple tools. There's a compare document tool, but um, for a sheet-to-sheet comparison, I like to use overlay pages. Now, you'll see what I have here. Um, the older drawing is in red and the newer drawing is in green. So I'm going to say green is good, and when I see green only, that means that there's a change that I've got to pay attention to. I can also add another if I want to. That gets kind of confusing to do three of them sometimes. And I can click align points. I can pick 3 points that are germane to both um, pages, but in this respect, the scale hasn't changed, the orientation hasn't changed, so I'm just going to go ahead and say okay, and it's going to do that work based on an alignment of the page itself as opposed to some sort of detail. So I've come in and you'll see I've got some green and some red here. So I see things that are changed that I have to pay attention to. Now, the first thing I see is there's this information at these loading docks here, which I really don't care about. Again, it's not our scope, so it doesn't really matter to me. Um, I've got a little bit happening over here. It looks like some sort of landing or something on the next to the loading ramp here. Again, I don't care, not a big deal, but it's going to mean something to someone. From a civil aspect, what we have is you'll see existing curb, and there was a drive, there was an entry here. It looks like in some previous iteration, or that's what was designed into the street. And the old entry was here. It looks almost like a temporary entry or possibly an afterthought because there's some changed information here too. But now we have a decent driveway. We have new curb. So from an estimating standpoint, I've now changed my dirt number, I've upgraded to concrete, but when I move to production in this location, what I want to do is get some shots of the existing curb here, ideally with a total station, so I've got really good elevations. I want it to 3 digits because we're going to literally tie into this thing, and I got to be correct, and have that information sent back to us, plug it into this model and make sure everything works. Does the water do what it's supposed to? Does this entry look right? Is this too steep? Do I have to change it? And go back and tell somebody that, hey, we've got some problems. We've got to do something. So there's that issue. And then down here, what's happened is we have kind of added into this retention area here off to the west. Again, it's existing, so I'm going to want some decent shots to show me how this thing looks, because here we go, tying into existing again. There's everything going back to that 1,000-foot mark. So I got to know what I'm doing is correct. So we've got we've got drainage that's coming in here. We're tying into existing drainage. There's all these moving parts that I better make sure are correct. So I'm going to want our client to shoot this stuff, send it back. We plug it into the model that we built and make sure everything is right. And most importantly, if they're searching for a certain number of cubic feet of water that we've got to satisfy, I want to make sure that this grading compensates for the change they made and also gives us what we need for the finished model. Um, it looks like some stuff has changed here with drainage and inlets, so that's another thing that we want to mess with and make sure that's okay. Um, are we adding and taking away? Are we moving some storms? So that gives us changes for the utilities, as well as you see some dirt work here that hadn't been anticipated before. So overall, when we start looking at these things, it gives us a better overall big picture view to drill down, look at those things successfully and quickly, put numbers to them, and get them out to the field. That's the trick for making a takeoff perform and become a real living, breathing document instead of just that static thing that I have to start all over and try to do something with to get that new or changed number.